The Golden Robe, written and read by Julian Brown. The Golden Robe, Part 3, The Meeting in the Desert. Leopold and 3 of his security detail took off from the Saudi Aramco helipad in Riyadh, eager to track down the Bedouin tribe in possession of the mysterious and elusive Golden Robe. Having received an intelligence update from Secret Service agents based around the peninsula, he found himself in Saudi Arabia now, instead of North Africa. He would have to keep his visit quiet, not wanting the Crown Prince to have any awareness of his activities, as the diplomatic situation between the Saudi royal family and the Biden administration had become very tense in recent days. Leopold's update was that these nomads were in the Arub al-Khali region of the Arabian Desert, also known as the Empty Quarter. Had the first report of the tribe traveling across the Sahara been incorrect? Could it be that this tribe were able to cover such a distance in only a few days because of the Golden Robe's power? Either this, or he was being led on a wild goose chase. Leopold was beginning to fret, feeling cravings for his soon-to-be new plaything. From the lost paintings of Van Gogh to Jewish Kabbalah books and relics stolen by the Nazis during the Holocaust, anything really that tickled his fancy. He wouldn't usually have to wait a day or two before the priceless item was in his hands. The minor inconvenience of this delay in locating it only added to his burning desire to finally embrace and own the robe. Like a young woman who rejected his inappropriately expectant sexual advances on the first date, despite his immense wealth, the need to conquer her will and reduce her to a begging, snivelling wreck became all the more apparent. Leopold was not a man who would accept no for an answer. Everything was his for the taking, and this robe would be no different. Luck seemed to be on his side, as just as he had this thought, the helicopter's pilot alerted him to the black dot on the horizon. The sun was high in the sky, above the vast expanse of the Arabian sands. Everywhere, sand. All you could see were the sand hills and valleys, ethereal, ghost-like, and golden in the midday sun, igniting Leopold's enthusiasm for the robe ever more. Now you may think to yourself, how foolish to choose to fly out into the middle of the desert at high noon, when the sun is at its most high point in the sky and at its most hot temperature. And you would be right in most cases. Leopold's private chopper was air-conditioned though, and so efficiently that he had to ask the pilot to turn it down as he was feeling too cold. As they neared the dot on the horizon, beautiful music played in his mind, as if from some muse of the desert. It was calming, reassuring, mystical, like a binaural beat healing frequency, and at the same time epic, orchestral. No one else in the vehicle appeared to hear the music but him, though he couldn't really tell and didn't ask. The music seemed to get louder as the helicopter came closer to reveal the black dot as a tent, with 7 camels resting outside. Not the tent that is likely to come to mind at mention of the word. This tent was more like a small palace. 'Twas a noble structure, to be sure, an illustrious gazebo, perfectly round from the sky, draped in black shiny cloth with gold lettering and intricately woven motifs and symbols. A few men dressed for the weather, holding AK-47s, came out to meet the landing party. Covered head to toe in brown and beige flowing fabrics, only the hands and the eyes of the troop were unveiled. Leopold instructed his security detail to keep their weapons concealed and leave the chopper empty-handed. He wanted to make it clear to these armed desert dwellers that he came in peace. He himself would carry the briefcase with the offering. The helicopter landed, and the 3 security men in black got out first, followed by Leopold, holding his hands up in a "we come in peace" gesture. He told the pilot to keep the engine running. The Bedouins kept their guns pointed to the ground as they slowly approached to meet the new arrivals halfway. Now they were standing square on each other. The agent standing to Leopold's right was also an interpreter and had been specially chosen for this trip. He greeted the men first with "Assalamu alaikum." As he continued, he was brought to an abrupt halt by one of the head-wrapped men, who held up his hand and said, "It's okay. We speak English." "Really?" exclaimed Leopold. "That's good." He wondered what a tribe of nomads in the middle of the desert would need to learn English for. He was intrigued. "You've come for the robe, haven't you?" "How did you know?" "I have my contacts. Out here in the desert. Especially out here in the desert." A blend of admiration and surprise gave Leopold pause. Best not to take these desert dwellers for granted. Leopold and his men were welcomed into the tent, refreshed with water and tea, and offered lunch, as the men were just about to eat. Leopold said he couldn't stay for long, but appreciated the invitation. Another time, perhaps, though he didn't plan on it. He sat down on the mat where some of the men had already started eating. Turning to the man who spoke such good English, opened the briefcase and watched as the group eyed its contents with poker faces. "There's $500,000 in there." Silence was the reply. The group speaker, who seemed also to be the group's leader, sat in deep contemplation, as if remembering something important that all things must pause for. After an awkward minute or so of this, he finally signaled to one of his men to go and fetch the robe. Leopold's heart started beating. This was what he came for. This is what he liked. No hassle, no aggro, just people doing business. A woman in a hijab, who seemed to be the speaker's wife, walked over holding a royal blue bag made of what looked like cashmere. The speaker, whose name Leopold knew not, seemed emotional, as if he was parting with an old friend, as he carefully, gently pulled out a golden robe from the blue bag. It was such a sight to behold. The flowing robe sparkled like a golden river in the Bedouin's hands. It seemed to have its own aura, an incredible presence captivating its audience. "Take it." The speaker's profound silence was finally broken by his decision to let go of the robe, pass it on to the next one in line. Leopold accepted the robe like it was a newborn baby, holding it with delicate restraint, inspired by a sense of reverent awe, which seemed to make speech meaningless. The intensity of emotion in that moment, between these two men, between past and future, seemed to suck the oxygen from the tent, making it even more of a challenge to breathe the thick desert air. Leopold's security detail seemed shaky, like they intuited that now was a good time to leave. The interpreter made this clear, saying, "Are we ready to go now, sir?" The moment was over, gone, only to flow into countless other wordless, airless moments, now that he had the golden robe. Leopold folded the robe and put it back into the cashmere bag. He stood up, thanking the tribe for their hospitality. This small talk was interrupted by the speaker, who shut the briefcase and handed it back to Leopold. "You can take your money too. We don't need it." Leopold chuckled. "Who doesn't need $500,000? "We don't," shot back the speaker, pushing the case into the hands of Leopold, who took offense at the gesture. "You could use it to buy some more camels or something." He just couldn't help himself. He had behaved so well so far, but inevitably the real Leopold would always reveal itself. "I know camels aren't cheap." The speaker once again seemed troubled, going silent for a few breaths, before saying with some deep feeling in his voice, "The ignorance of Westerners never ceases to amaze me. Why would you assume us poor? Because we live on little? compared to you, who wastes and uses more than he needs? We want not for money, Leopold. Our treasures are those of the soul. Leopold shrank back. He didn't remember giving this man his name. Okay, fine. I just don't understand, that's all. Understand what? If you have money, wealth, why do you do this? I mean, why don't you... Leopold was once again interrupted by the speaker, who said, buy a mansion? A private jet? My own island? An apartment in Dubai, maybe? Some of my friends have these things. I have no care for them. I've lived in the world, known many men like you before. Too many. That is why I like to be out here, to be far away from them. Leopold felt agitated by this man's abrupt, sullen demeanour. The speaker's cold stare burned into him, and he temporarily forgot all about the golden robe he came for, caught up in a strange battle of wills with this man from the desert who spoke English so beautifully. I will not lie, Leopold. It is difficult for me to part with the robe, but it is my custom, the law of my culture, and in keeping with the legend of the robe, that I cannot refuse you, and that I can accept no payment for it. Leopold raised his left eyebrow. Well, each to their own. The speaker smiled. There are rules to the use of the robe. Have you not learned them yet? Don't worry. You will learn them soon enough. I think we better go now, sir, the agent/interpreter said more firmly now, doing his part to break up the fight so they could all get going. Yes, you're right. Let's go, Leopold replied. Thank you, he said to the speaker, without any real emotion, still irate from the speaker's words, as he and his agents walked from the tent, the golden robe under his arm. The 4 men boarded the helicopter and flew away from this mysterious palace in the desert.